Welcome to Gemara Academy. In this class, we will learn from Masechta Shabbos, Daf Gimel Amud Beis and Daf Daled Amud Aleph. Let's begin. So we start off with the translations in purple, because this information is going to lead into a question. Amar Abaya said, Pshitali, it's clear to me, it's obvious to me, that Yadei Shel Adam, the hand of a person, and it's referring to a hand that's extended into another Rishus, it's not like the Rishus where the person is in. So if the person's in Rishus Harabim, it's not like Rishus Harabim. And if the person's in Rishus HaYachid, he's extending his hand out into Rishus Harabim, it's not like the Rishus HaYachid. Basically, the person's hand, when it's extended into another Rishus, is not like the Rishus that the body is in. How do I know this? I know it's not like a Rishus Harabim miyodei da'ani, from the hand of Ani. We see if the Ani extended his hand inwards, and then the Balabais took something out of it and put it down into the Rishus HaYachid. Now, if the hand of the Ani, who's standing in Rishus HaRabim, if his hand was considered as if it's with him in Rishus HaRabim, then if the Balabais did an akir from that hand and then brought the item into Rishus HaYachid, he would be chayiv, but he's not. It's only also because he did part of the malacha. And Rishus HaYachid, I know that it's not similar to Rishus HaYachid. When the Balabais is in Rishus HaYachid and his hand is extended into Rishus HaRabim, I know that this hand is not considered like it's in Rishus HaYachid. Miyodid the Balabais, from the hand of the Balabais. The Mishnah says that the Balabais extended his hand out into Rishus HaRabim, and the Ani took the item out of it and put it down into the Rishus HaRabim. The Ani is pater. He only did part of the malacha. Now, if the hand of the Balabais is considered as if it's together with his body, and his body's in Rishus HaYachid, so his hand is in Rishus HaYachid, then the Ani would be chayiv, because the Ani took it out of Rishus HaYachid and brought it to Rishus HaRabim. But it's not the case. It's only aser. And from there we see that when a person's hand is extended into another Rishus, the hand is not considered to be in the same Rishus as the person's body. So the question now is, Baya asked, Yadei Shel Adam, the hand of the person, which is extended into another Rishus. What is the din regarding this, that it should be made into a karmelis? Do we say the hand now becomes a karmelis? What's the question? Did the Rabbanan give him a knas regarding bringing it back to himself, that he cannot? Or not? So did the Rabbanan give him a knas that he put his hand out into another rishus, which shouldn't be with an item, and they turned it into a karmelis, which now creates that he can bring it back to him? Or did they not make it into a karmelis and he's permitted to bring it back to him? So the Gemara presents an answer. Toshma, we learned in a brisa. It says, if a person's hand was full of fruits, and he extended it outside, he was in Rishus HaYachid, extended his hand with fruits outside into Rishus HaRabim, Tani Chada, one brisa says, also lachzira, he cannot bring his hand back. But Tani Idach, and the other one brisa teaches, there's another brisa that teaches, mutar lachzira, he's permitted to bring it back. So the Gemara explains, how does this answer our question? My love, is this not? But how come that this is what they argue about? The Mar Savar, Kekarmelis Damya. The one that says he can't bring it back, he holds, Mar Savar, he holds, Kekarmelis Damya, that it's like a karmelis, he can't bring it back. His hand is a karmelis, the item's in a karmelis, a person can't carry from a karmelis into a different rishus, whether it's Rishus HaYachid or Rishus HaRabim. Or Mar Savar, and the other master holds, the one that says that it's permitted to bring it back, Lav Kekarmelis Damya, it's not like a karmelis, and therefore he's permitted to bring it back. So, over here we seem to have an answer that this question, whether it's like a karmelis or not, is a machlikas in two brises. However, now the Gemara is going to go on to say that that's not the case. And there's actually 5 other ways of understanding these brises. Now, we had a question, what is it? And we thought we had an answer, and therefore it was in green. Now all the other answers are going to come up in red. Not because they're questions, but more because they challenge and they question the conclusion we came to, which was in green, because it answered, is it a karmelis or not? Oh, it seems like it's machlekas between two brises. Gemara says, no, not necessarily. Since the no, not necessarily is a challenge, it refutes the answer we gave, therefore it's in red, but it's not actually a question. Says the Gemara, no, the kula alma kekarmelis damya. All opinions hold is a karmelis. V'lei kasha, it's not a question why one brisa permits him to bring his hand back and one doesn't. Kan lamatam, here it's beneath 10 tefachim. So, if the person extends his hand under 10 tefachim, so his hand's like a karmelis, he can bring it back into the rishus that he's in, whether it's Rishus HaYachid or Rishus HaRabim, because you can't carry from a karmelis to one of those rishuyas. Kan over here, where it says it's permitted to bring it back, l'mayla masar, his hand was above 10, and we know that if a person's in a karmelis, the area above 10 tefachim is considered a makam p'tur. You're allowed to carry from a makam p'tur to Rishus HaYachid or to Rishus HaRabim. So that's one way of interpreting the brises. They actually both hold that it is a karmelis. And if you want, you can say that they both hold it's not a karmelis. Both brises are referring to a case that it's under 10. But lavke karmelis damian, it's not like a karmelis. So why does one say it's also to bring it back? It's not a karmelis. But like Kash, it's not a contradiction why one says you could bring it back and one says you can't. In this brise that says it's permitted to bring it back is referring to a case where he extended his hand outside when it was still daytime. Here where it says it's us to bring it back, it's referring to a case where he put his hand out after Shabbos already began. Why does it matter when he put his hand out? Maybe when he did it from when it was still day, like on Surah Rabbanan, the Rabbanan gave him a knas. He didn't do anything else. So there's nothing wrong with a person extending his hand out while it's still day. Now, he shouldn't have left it out when Shabbos came in, but the act of taking it out wasn't an isser. There's no need to give him a knas. But if it's after it became dark that he extended his hand out, something which is not permitted, he should not have done that. Kan Surah Rabbanan gave him a knas. In other words, according to this understanding, there's two different ways that the Rabbanan can make it also for a person to bring his hand back. One is, we're making the person's hand into a karmelis, therefore, automatically he can't bring it back because it's a karmelis. Another way of looking at it is, Rabbanan are not making it a karmelis, they're simply going to give him a knas. We're going to say, it's not a karmelis, but we're making it usher for you to bring it back in. We don't have to give it the status of a karmelis to make it usher. So this answer that's going to distinguish between when he took his hand out, we have to say, if they made it a karmelis, it wouldn't affect when he took his hand out. So we need to say, they're not making it a karmelis. It's simply a knas when a person did something he shouldn't have done. At any rate, we have two answers over here. One is that both brises hold it is a karmelis. So why would one brise permit him to bring it back? Because it's above 10 tefachim, so it's a makam p'tur. And another explanation is that both brises hold it's not a karmelis. So why would one prohibit him? Would make it usher for him to bring it back? It's a knas the Chazal gave. It's not a karmelis, but they made it usher to bring it back. Why? Because he did something he shouldn't have done. He extended his hand outside with items after Shabbos began. Now the Gemara is going to say that from this second answer we could learn something out in a different unrelated issue. Ad the Rabbah, says the Gemara, to the contrary, Ibcha Mistaber, it should be reversed. Now we should say that when he puts his hand out in the day, there's no knas, and at night there is a knas. We should say the total opposite. If he did it from the daytime, if that's when he took his hand out, the isha delayed. Let's say this individual will take his hand out during the day, and we would say it's usher to bring your hand back. What's the worst thing that could happen? He'll let go of the item because he's unable to hold on to it for so long. The isha delay, if he lets go of it, he's not going to come to a chiyuv chatas. So when we make it usher for him to bring it back, we're not putting him in a really dangerous situation. At the very worst, what's going to happen is he's going to drop it into the other rishus, which is usher, but there's no chiyuv chatas involved. So the knessu rabbanan, let the rabbanan give him a knas, because it's not going to be such a severe consequence if he lets go of it. But if he extended his hand from after it became dark, the isha delay, that if we're going to tell him it's usher and he lets go of it, he's going to come through this to a chiyuv chatas. He took his hand out after Shabbos began, and now we tell him he can't bring it back. If he lets go of it, he puts the item into the other rishus, he has a chiyuv chatas. So loy looking to rabbanan, the rabbanan shouldn't give him a knas. So says the Gemara, this is leading into a conclusion. And from this that we did not answer this way, we did not say they gave him a knas, because it's not going to come to such a big isser. But he took his hand out, we can't give him a knas, because he'll come to a big isser. So from the fact that we didn't answer it that way, Tifshit Rav Bibi Bar Abaya, we can now resolve a question that Rav Bibi Bar Abaya posed elsewhere. What was the question? But that's basically the lead-up. The lead-up was, we should have said that when he extended his hand from the daytime, that he's not going to come to a big isser if he drops it, give a knas. But if he extended his hand after Shabbos arrived, if he drops it, it'll come a big isser, we can't give him a knas. The fact that we didn't explain it, says the Gemara, that's the question, so to speak. We can now resolve the question of Rav Bibi Bar Abaya. Now, what is the question of Rav Bibi Bar Abaya? The boy Rav Bibi Bar Abaya asked, Hidvik pas batana, if somebody attached bread into the oven, in those days they would press the bread on the walls of the oven to bake. Did they permit him? He did it by mistake. By mistake, a person put bread into the oven, and then he realized, oh my, it's Shabbos, it's going to bake. Did they permit him to remove the bread? Removing the bread from the oven is not an isser minatera, it's an isser midrabanan. Did they remove their isser and permit him to remove the bread before he comes to a chiyuv chatas? He put the bread in, there's no chiyuv chatas yet until it bakes. Now he realizes he wants to remove it. Did Chazal say, we'll permit you to remove the bread so that you don't come to a chiyuv chatas, or not? Did they not permit him? So from this we could conclude the answer to this question of Rav Bibi Bar Abaya. You could resolve, you could conclude that they didn't permit it. We don't mind if the person is going to come to a chiyuv chatas. The fact that an individual will come to a chiyuv chatas does not mean that we need to remove an isser d'Rabbanan. Just like in our interpretation of the brises, we said if the person extended his hand outwards from night, we're going to give him a knas, even though it'll bring to a chiyuv chatas, without a doubt. He can't hold his hand. He can't hold the item there the entire time. He'll for sure come to a chiyuv chatas. We say we don't mind. So the same thing must be by Bibi Bar Abaya. We obviously did not permit it, even though he's going to come to a chiyuv chatas. Says the Gemara that was posed as a question. Oh, now I can answer it. Says the Gemara, Holei Kasha, it's not a question. V'tivshet, conclude, resolve the question of Rav Bibi Bar Abaya that didn't permit it. V'ibayas Eiman, if you want, you could say. Now a third, we're going back to the interpretations of the Brisa. One was they both hold it's a karmelis. When it was a mutter, when it was above 10. One was they both hold it's not a karmelis. When is it usher? Because they gave a knas because they did it for the nighttime. Now a third interpretation. If you want, you could say, do not resolve the question of Rav Bibi Bar Abaya. It's not a question of the two brises. Kan b'shegig, kan b'mezid. Here, when they said it's mutter to bring the hand back, it's because it was b'shegig. Kan, when they said it's usher, it's because it was b'mezid. B'shegig loy konsur rabbanon. When he did it by mistake, the rabbanon did not give him a knas. And b'mezid konsur rabbanon. When he did it on purpose, the rabbanon did give him a knas. Now, just to explain something here for a moment, there's a long Rashi actually here, but we'll explain part of it, and that is, it seems we said kan b'shegig. When it's b'shegig, there's no knas. So why don't we resolve that? Look, the rabbanon, when a person put his hand up by mistake, they're not going to give him a knas because he only did it by mistake, and we don't want him to come to an isur chatas. So maybe the same thing by Rav Bibi Bar Abai, when the person attached the bread in the oven, it was by mistake. Just like there we permitted to bring his hand back, also here we're going to permit him to remove the bread. Says Rashi, it's not the same thing, because the isser to remove bread from the oven is the isser midrabanan. They're not going to remove that isser. Whereas over here, there's no isser. The question is, are we going to impose an isser? So to remove an isser, we wouldn't, but we don't have to impose an isser and create problems. At any rate, we answered a third way of resolving the two brises, that the brise that says it's us to bring one's hands back, it's because the person intentionally, on purpose, extended his hand out. Chazal said if a person did it on purpose, we're going to give him a knas. Whereas if the person did it by mistake, Chazal are not going to give him a knas. V'i bayis eman, if you want, you could say a fourth way of resolving the two brises. Idi v'idi b'shegig, both brises are on shegig. So why does one brise say it's permitted, one say it's usher to bring one's hand back? V'hocha bekonsu shegig, and here, regarding giving a knas to an individual, they did something by mistake. Atu mezid. On account of the mezid, they're arguing. Do we give a knas on shegig on account of mezid? Are we worried that if we don't give the knas by shegig, it'll bring to mezid? That's what they argue about. Mar Savar, one opinion holds, konsu shegig to mezid. The Chazal did, the Rabbanan gave a knas by shegig on account of mezid. We don't want people to start doing it on purpose. So in order to stop that from happening, when a person extends his hand up by mistake, we're going to give him a knas, so we're not going to permit him to bring it back. Umar Savar, the other master holds, like konsu shegig to mezid. They did not give a knas. They didn't find the individual that did it on shegig on account of mezid. On mezid, we won't permit him to bring it back, but by shegig we will. V'i bayis eman, if you want, you could say lo ilam lo konsu. They never gave a knas. They never gave a knas. A person could bring his hand back according to all opinions. V'loi kasha. One brise says it's permitted, one says it's usher. Says the Gemara, v'loi kasha, it's not a question. Kan lo oisa chatzar. Here, where they said it's mutter, it's referring that the person is mutter to bring it back to the same yard. So extended his hand outwards. We're saying it's mutter to bring it back to the yard he's in. And kan lo chatzar acheres. When it says it's usher, it means lachzira, to return it to a different yard. And that's with that we finish our 5 answers. So let's just briefly review them. One way of resolving the two brises, besides the original one, we thought that one brise holds it's a carmelist, one holds it's not. Therefore, one holds it's usher, one says it's not a carmelist, it's mutter. There's 5 other ways. Let's go through them briefly. One is they both hold it's a carmelist. It's usher since it's a carmelist and it's beneath 10. When it's mutter, it's because it was above 10 tvachim and therefore it's a makam Torah. Second one holds they both say it's not a carmelist. One says that it's usher because they gave him a knas. Since he extended his hand out, it's referring to a case where he did it after it became dark. And one says that one's referring to a case where he did it when it was still daytime, and therefore they didn't give him a knas. The knas is not that's a carmel, it's just a knas, he can't bring his hand back. The next way of understanding it is that the brise that says it's usher is a case where he did it b'mezid, so he gave him a knas. The one that says that it's mutter is because he did it b'shegig, we didn't give him a knas. Another way of learning it is that they're both referring to cases of shegig, and they argue. One says it's usher because we give a knas b'shegig atu mezid on account of mezid, and one says it's mutter because we don't give a knas on shegig atu mezid. And the last and final answer is that everybody agrees it's mutter. They both agree that it's mutter. And what are they arguing about? It's actually 2 different cases. There's no argument. The one that says it's usher, it's referring to it's usher to take it to a different courtyard, and the one that says it's mutter, it says it's mutter, bring it back to the same courtyard the person's standing in. And now we're going to referring to this last answer, that it's usher to a different courtyard and mutter to the same courtyard, we'll bring a related teaching. This is like what Rava asked Rav Nachman. He asked him, if a person's hand was full of fruits, and he extended it outwards into Rosh Hashanah, what's the din regarding if the person wants to bring it back to the same yard? He told him mutter, it's permitted. What about if he wants to take it to a different yard? So he's carrying from one Rosh Hashanah to another Rosh Hashanah. That's mutter. But he first extended his hand out to Rosh Hashanah. He told him it's usher. So he asked him, what's the difference? What's the difference? Either way, he's not doing the malacha. Either way, he's bringing it to Rosh Hashanah. So Rav Nachman responded, I'll tell you when you measure a core of salt for me. There's other ways of learning those words, but the point is, it was Rashi says, he responded to him with using b'dichusa. And then he explained, Hasam loisavida machshavte. When the person brought it back to the same yard, his machshava wasn't fulfilled. He wanted to take it out, he didn't take it out. He brought it back in. So we're gonna that'll be okay. But if we allow him to take it to a different yard, his machshava was fulfilled, and we're concerned that next time he'll fulfill it in a much bigger way by taking it out to Rishus Harabim. So to summarize, Abaye had a question: do we say a person's hand extended to another Rishus? Did the Chazal make it into a Karmelish or not? We thought to say originally that it's a machlekes between two brises. However, we showed that those two brises could be explained in 5 different ways. And then on the side we had 2 discussions. One was regarding hidbik bas bataner, if a person placed bread in the oven, is he permitted to remove it or not? And the other one was the distinction between why is it that a person can bring his hand back to the same yard, but he can't take it afterwards to a different yard.